Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, 5 Ways to Fit In and Stand Out During the MBA Admissions Process. My name is Nelly, and I'll be the moderator on behalf of UniMy Prep team. I'm here today with David Johnston and John Murn, representing Transcend Admissions Consultants. Transcend is a consultancy focused on providing graduate students with strategic advice on the most effective way to prepare their application. So I'm very happy to welcome them both. But before giving the word to them, I just want to let you know that you can ask questions anytime during the webinar, just using the Q&A box. We'll take time to answer at the end of the sessions. All questions are welcome, so don't hesitate. Okay, I think we're all set now, so I'm giving the word to you, David.
Thanks, Nelly. Hi, everybody. My name is David Johnston. I'm the founder of Transcend Admissions Consultants. I founded this company in 2010. And the reason I really enjoy this work is because I really believe in the power of education. I've seen so many people use this and make a transformative change. And I really enjoy working with clients and developing strategies and refining stories and essays and prepping for interviews. It's really great fun. And it's the only thing more rewarding than getting the notification from the clients that they were admitted to their dream MBA program. It's the only thing more rewarding than that is a few years later when they've graduated and they often give me updates about their career progress and they got a promotion or a new job and they kind of thought back about that time when they were applying for MBA and they just wanted to say hi. Those things happen sometimes and it makes it all worthwhile. And really, I've seen, an MBA transform people's careers over and over and over again. And I'd like to give you just a short story. One of our clients several years ago, her name was Jenny. She was a communications and journalism major in college. And she became a journalist and she had a pretty successful career as a business journalist. But as a business journalist, she started to become more interested in the actual business strategies than writing stories. And she realized, I want to start doing more research and get more involved in the field. So that led her to do market research. So she joined one of the global market research firms where she was helping, top companies do qualitative research to find insights to support their product and marketing strategies. And it was through that job that she got to work with a lot of major healthcare and pharmaceutical companies. And she just, over time, developed this keen interest in healthcare. And she really wanted to get into the healthcare industry. She could see the power that healthcare had to impact human health. And she wanted to be part of that story of launching products and marketing products. So she tried really, really hard to get into the pharmaceutical industry and to apply for many jobs and to network, but she just wasn't able to get into the industry. It was hard with her background as a, communications major and with no experience. So she finally came to the conclusion that an MBA was the solution here. She needed to learn about business. She needed to get industry knowledge, to get a much stronger network, to get career resources. And that's what she did. And fortunately, we worked really hard on the applications and she got into a top 20 MBA in the US. I'm not going to say which one, but it wasn't Harvard or Stanford, but it was a really good program. And she went to that school and graduated. And guess what? She's actually a product manager at one of the really famous global healthcare companies in the world that you've all heard of. And, she just reached out to me not that long ago and kind of checked in. And, stories like that really make me feel great. So, I could give you 10 more examples like that, or 20 more, or 50 more. And that's really why I believe in the power of an MBA. And I think a lot of you do too. That's why you're listening today. That's why you want to apply for this degree. You've seen articles online about, the return on investment for an MBA, for the top 25 MBAs, it's a really impressive number for ROI. It's something like 300% ROI within the first 10 years. So you probably know that. And the thing is, a lot of other people know that too. And that's why there's thousands of people applying to the top MBA programs every year. And it's always super competitive. So you need to do a great job on the application. And I want to give you some tips on how to do that. I hope I can give you some actionable advice. Because yes, you're going to try really hard to get a good GRE score and GMAT score, and that's going to help. And hopefully you've been doing well in your career. But you need a little bit more than that. Again, you've got thousands of people to compete with. You need to really do a great job in the application. And I would say you need to both fit in and stand out. So that's what I'm going to talk about. How do you fit in and stand out in the MBA application? And I think a lot of people think these concepts are mutually exclusive. A lot of people think, you know what? I can't fit in and stand out, because when you're standing out, you're not really fitting in, right? But actually, I don't really think this is a contradiction. I think these two concepts are not mutually exclusive, and you can do both. And I want to give you some tips on how to both stand out and fit in. So the first thing I'm going to talk about, though, is how to stand out. Again, lots of outstanding people like you applying to the program. How's the admissions officers? How are they going to choose and decide who's the best one for the program? Well, number one, they're going to be looking for the most outstanding candidates. And you can be outstanding for different reasons. One can be test scores, one can be professional progress, one can be academics, others, can be things you've done in extracurricular activities. But let me give you some things you might not have thought of and ways you can stand out that I think are not obvious. Yeah, the GMAT is an obvious way to stand out. But here are some ways that are not obvious. The first thing I would like to tell you to do, that the one way you can stand out is simply being a great storyteller. Through really good storytelling, you will attract attention. People will notice you. You will really stand out. And anytime we're communicating to a target audience, we are trying to influence them. We're trying to change their attitudes, their beliefs, their behavior in some way. The problem is just giving facts and data are usually not enough to change behavior. Maybe you're going to change it in 1 out of 10 person, 1 out of 10 people that listen to you or meet you. And a lot of, there's been some research done, and the famous cognitive psychologist, Jerome Bruner, did research that he noticed that through storytelling, people were 20 times more likely to remember something. So that's the key here. Effective storytelling is much more memorable than just providing facts and information. So that's what I want you to think. I want you to think, hey, I need to tell some great stories in my application, through my essays, through my interviewing. And why is storytelling so sticky? Why does it stick in people's minds? I think it's because it matches all types of learning styles. So there's 3 main types of learning styles: visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. For people who are visual learners, storytellers, the visual learners can visualize what they're hearing in the story. The auditory learners can listen to what they're hearing in the story and imagine it, and the kinesthetic learners can feel the emotion in the story. So it's going to be effective in all 3 of these kinds of people. So that's what, no matter what your strategy is, no matter what you're trying to communicate to the audience, whether it's an achievement, whether it's a personal growth experience, whether you're trying to convince them that you're a problem solver, that you're innovative, that you're highly driven, that you're empathetic, it's going to be more memorable if you do it through a story. And now I'd like to bring my colleague John in to maybe give you an example about how you might do this in your application.
Thanks, David. During my part of the presentation today, you'll see a few slides on the screen here. So to build on what David was saying, the power of storytelling, when it comes to writing your essays, we refer to this as using a narrative structure. So of course, a story is a narrative. Again, the goal is to capture someone's attention, make hopefully an emotional connection to really humanize you and help you stand out off of the black and white paper of your CV and your essays. And then ultimately to earn that person's attention and be memorable, be sticky as standing out, as David mentioned. So generally in a longer essay, the narrative structure involves starting the essay with a personal story that sets up the opportunity to talk about your goals and what you need from an MBA program. Okay, so I'm going to show you an example here, 2 different versions of the same kind of narrative opening. And in this narrative, you'll see that The writer is focusing on having overcome a challenge when they were younger. They had a kind of anxiety disorder, and in the end, they feel that experience over years of working on that has made them, more determined or more focused. And so we'll look at two different examples here. The first example lacks a narrative structure. It's kind of just delivering information. And the second one, I'll include some highlights so you can see ways that we believe that you can really add a human narrative and connect to the reader. So I'm going to talk through this in just a moment. Please take your time to read it. So as I mentioned, this is a non-narrative structure. So most of these sentences are including statements or facts that are all important information to this person's background and all relevant to this person's application. However, there's not a lot of connective language and emotional reaching out to the reader. So, you can see at the beginning, the writer starts out with a declaration. What matters most to me is dedication. So it feels like this should set the tone for the paper when you make a strong declaration like that. However, the rest of the paragraph doesn't quite hold together and it doesn't become a real story. It just kind of tells us about this person. Okay. So they do tell us that they suffered from this condition. They do tell us that it impacted their ability to speak in public, and that as a result, they stuttered and had other issues. Okay. So looking at a more narrative approach to this kind of opening, you'll see I've highlighted some things in pink, but just at the very beginning, right? It starts with saying, I remember being 12 years old. When each one of us reads that or hears that, it immediately takes us back to a time and place in our life and starts to put us in a frame of referencing referencing the time of this person's life that they are talking to. So we are identifying with that. Then we have an actual story. So this is a specific instance where this person was on stage at an event. And even, now if you look at these pink highlights, these are the ways that this person expresses things that are very relatable and very human. Okay. So a person was so nervous that they were sick to their stomach and they had a fear of being laughed at. Okay. Immediately, these are relatable things. As people, we've all been very uncomfortable. We've all had a lack of confidence in certain situations. So we can connect with that. We can empathize with that. Then he or she gets around to telling us that at times that this condition had caused them to stutter. But then in the closing, we have this kind of strong transition that tells us, okay, this person's been dealing with a challenge for a long time, but the result of that challenge is that now the writer is determined to overcome their fear and stuttering. So that introduces talking about goals, talking about aspirations, talking about what they want to learn in their program. Okay, so there's a lot more humanized language here and a lot more connective tissue between the reader and the writer. Okay, so to wrap up this section, I also just want to highlight that it's not only in long essays where you can include bits of narrative to make your essays more sticky and memorable. So in short essays or in short examples in longer essays, of course, you want to highlight accomplishments and things that you care about. So, your GPA or sales success, your passion for helping others are examples here. But rather than just highlighting maybe that you were a valedictorian, you might want to give a one-sentence story about how you maintained this pristine GPA while tutoring younger students, right? This shows an interest in helping others. It shows an ability to manage different tasks and succeed, etc. Similarly, increasing sales numbers by 50% is great, but it humanizes the story if you say, well, I taught myself this piece of software during the sales process and it helped us close those deals. Again, shows motivation, shows that you're a self-starter, that kind of thing. And rather than just saying that you have a passion for something, again, try to find an opportunity to give an example. So if you have a passion for helping, make sure that you tell people that every summer you volunteer to feed the homeless or you went on a service trip to Cambodia, because those things are more memorable than simply saying, I have a passion for helping people and I hope to do that throughout my career. Okay, so I hope that sums up the narrative structure and I will turn it back over to David for the next section.
Thanks, John. I really believe in the power of great storytelling. And I was so proud a couple of years ago when one of our clients received an admissions letter from a top MBA program. And one of the admissions officers wrote a little handwritten note on her admissions letter that said, I loved your essay about, I forget what the topic was, but it made me, proud that, people really notice this. It really does matter, okay? So don't forget that. The next topic, the next way I think you can stand out is through demonstrating leadership, okay? Leadership. Let's think about what business schools are trying to do. What they're trying to do is train people to be future business leaders, whether they're future CEOs, whether they're going to be founding companies, becoming partners at consulting firms. They're trying to prepare you to be a future business leader. So the best way to convince them that you have the potential to be a future business leader is to show them that you already have leadership ability and potential. So this is one of the key qualities that MBA admissions committees are looking for. And I think no matter who you are, it's important. If you're an applicant that's a little bit older, and when I say older, I mean maybe closer to 30. In MBA terms, you might say a lot of people think they're starting to get old, but let's just say maybe you have 6 to 10 years of experience. You're a little bit above the average age. In this case, you should be getting close to management. If not, you may already be a manager. So in this case, you want to either show the admissions committee that you really are doing well in your management duties, or you're on the cusp of management and you're really ready to make that breakthrough. But it's just as important for a younger applicant with maybe 3 to 5 years of experience. What you're trying to do is just really show that potential. Now, maybe you don't have people management experience, but if you can convince them that you've shown this potential somehow in leading a project or just through your daily work, believe me, it's going to make you a much more attractive candidate, okay? But really, what is leadership? You need to think more deeply about it. Leadership is not just one thing, and there's not just one type of leader. So try to think about the type of leadership qualities you've displayed in your stories and bring those out in your essays and bring those out in your interview answers. You might be an empathetic leader. You might be a leader who's highly creative, a great team builder, someone who's really good at developing a vision, someone who's talented at leading without authority. Whatever type of leader you are, try to bring that out. And there's plenty of articles you can find online, 10 qualities that leaders should have. I think this can give you an idea of the way you might pitch your own previous experiences that were leadership related. And now I'm going to bring John back again to talk a little bit of how to bring a leadership example into your application.
Thank you, David. A couple of the examples I'll share today are from our actual client cases, as David shared in the opening. So this example comes from one of our MBA applicant clients who started his career as an electrical engineer, which is a very technical background. He works at a semiconductor company. And this is the kind of role where, many people have very successful careers rising on the technical side of the business. They don't have to work with clients or negotiate consumer-facing things. And that's a very, there's a good outlook in that career opportunity. However, this applicant happened to have taken a very non-traditional career path within this very large company. He has risen from electrical engineer to regional project manager, which is a customer-facing role. It does involve things like managing sales planning and understanding the supply chain and production, et cetera. So he does reference his prior technical knowledge. But when it came time to apply for his MBA programs, one of the challenges, or one of the ways he said he felt he didn't know how to express himself on certain leadership focused essays was he doesn't have a lot of experience managing people, which is a lot of people default in their mind to think that's the most common idea of leadership, being the captain of the team or being the manager of the people. This is an obvious form of leadership. However, this candidate had lots of great examples of growth that were observed and that helped him rise throughout his career. So for example, he would automate processes that would make not only his job easier, but make his whole team more efficient. He created SOPs, standard operating procedures, for onboarding new people to very technical roles, which was a huge time saver. He created libraries of data and documents that helped the business development and the sales team. So he regularly went above and beyond the descriptions of whatever his duties were at a given time. So in this case, he was really leading by example, and that got noticed. His managers noticed him, managers from other teams noticed him, and that's one of the reasons he was able to have this non-traditional career trajectory, because he got invited kind of to make lateral moves rather than moving straight up in a technical career path. So, he was leading by example, by being proactive, by finding solutions to things around him. He was including his team. He was enabling everybody else to do more. He was showing his selflessness by, again, helping others, creating a solution that's not only helping him do his job better, but maybe can be an evergreen solution to help teams down the road for years to come. And, all of this adds up to show that he has a real growth mindset. He's very self-motivated, and he's dedicated to helping the company succeed. So time and again, his efforts were rewarded by other managers giving him promotions. And so when we were working on his applications, we took this strategy of focusing on showing the ways that he has contributed above and beyond to his teams, rather than simply trying to claim or fixate on the idea that managing people was the most important aspect of leadership. So a little bit of a non-traditional career path, but a great example of a way that you can demonstrate leadership even if you don't have experience managing a team of X number of people. There are lots of ways to show your aptitude, show your career progress, and show the way that you've contributed and are a leader without necessarily having the biggest job title in the room. Back to you, David.
Thanks, John. No matter what industry you're in, if you can convince the admissions office you're a leader, you're going to take a huge step towards admission. Now, the third point I'm going to make about standing out might seem counterintuitive to you. It is humility. I really think showing humility is a really attractive and important characteristic. But why do I say it's counterintuitive? I think because the word humility, or being humble, gets a bad rap. A lot of people think of this concept as a synonym for weakness, as it's, we're people who lack confidence. We're not assertive, we're humble. So, but I think I don't agree with that. And I think you should think about this in a different way, because really, as we all know, none of us are perfect, okay? So it's not realistic to come into the application trying to display perfection, okay? And if you do take that approach, you may seem a little bit insincere in the eyes of the people you're communicating with. Or what's worse, when you're trying to seem confident, you may seem a little bit overconfident. And what happens when you're overconfident? It starts to look a little bit like arrogance. So I'm not saying you shouldn't try to be confident. I'm not saying you shouldn't try to show strength. I'm just saying try to show strength and balance it with humility. And I think people are really attracted to that. There's a really, really famous professor at Wharton named Adam Grant, and he wrote a book recently. And in that book, he talks about the concept of confident humility in leadership. So he's an organizational psychologist, and he studies, leadership in top companies, and he advises some of the top global companies on how to create better cultures and how their leaders can manage the company better. And he has an interesting insight. He found that the most effective leaders are both confident yet have humility. So that means, yes, they're confident in their decisions, people respect them, yet they show an open-mindedness, basically. They show an idea that they're not trying to say they know everything, and that they're willing to accept feedback from others, and they're willing to rethink their decisions. And when they fail, they're not afraid to admit that they failed. And that's a very, very attractive quality, okay? When you're able to admit and have the confidence to say, you know what? I don't know everything. There's a lot of things I need to learn. People are really attracted to that type of talk, okay? So I'm not trying to say come into the MBA application and don't act confident at all. No, but a little bit of humility here and there can be very, very powerful and attractive, okay? And I think John can give you another interesting illustration of this to help you understand maybe how it could work in the real world.
Yeah, thank you again, David. So this example doesn't come from one of our clients, but instead come from a very high-ranking and decorated professional. So Bob Iger very recently stepped down as the CEO at Disney after many decades, growing his career at NBC and Disney. In his recent book, he talks a lot about humility and being humble, specifically as a leader. So this quote comes from the book. He says, "You have to be humble, and you can't pretend to be someone you're not, or to know something you don't. You're also in a position of leadership, though, so you can't let humility prevent you from leading." So when he shares this quote in the book, he's talking about several experiences where he felt challenged as a leader and at times felt very lonely or effectively didn't know how to do his job well. And being at the top as a CEO, he didn't necessarily have a lot of mentors he could look up to within his own company to help guide him and make these decisions. So Bob Iger, over the years, acquired this reputation for being humble and being open by turning to his teams in different departments and asking their input on this kind of decision making. He turned to other professionals that he looked to as peers or even mentors and sought their opinions and their guidance. And by doing this, by opening himself up, by admitting that he didn't always have the answer, he became this very approachable leader. And that's the reputation that that sticks with him after several decades, like I said, leading at Disney. So, someone, even in the role of CEO, can exude humility in a way that invites other people to feel close to them, to feel comfortable, to make suggestions, to raise important questions. As you all know, it's not uncommon for a leader to sometimes feel intimidating or unapproachable. And it's hard sometimes to take a step to do something you think would be helpful if you think that person might be offended or they don't create space for you to make those kinds of suggestions. Of course, not everyone is a mega corporation CEO. So humility in other roles might look slightly different, right? As David mentioned, humility creates kind of a likable vibe for you among other people. It's inviting. When we show vulnerability, it's proven by emotional sciences that when we show vulnerability, other people are more likely to let their guards down and be more honest and be open with us, right? So this way we can achieve more together. So for someone who's not necessarily CEO, these traits are important when people are looking to hire you because they see that you have an understanding of yourself. When it comes to your MBA application, when it comes to being humble, this may show that you understand that there are certain areas of weakness that you need to add skills or you need to develop. This doesn't have to be a flat tire on your application, so to speak. This can simply show, hey, I know that I need to gain these several skills, and that's going to be a key focus of my time at this program. Okay, so understanding yourself is a very strong and likable personality trait. Being teachable. Again, admitting that you don't know everything, being open to hearing different ideas about how to get things done, taking critical feedback on your work in an open way and understanding that that can help you do better work in the future or improve what you're working on now. And finally, as I mentioned about Bob Iger, being honest and open. So getting a reputation for being honest and open when you're not the CEO also could be inviting for, let's say, your manager to trust you to come and ask your opinion about a difficult decision where they need some support because they know they can trust that you're going to give them your honest take, right? So humility comes in different forms, to David's point. And, it's a matter of having self-possession, being honest with yourself, and trying to open up about things you do and don't know, opportunities to help others, but also opportunities to ask for help or accept help when it comes your way. Back to you, David.
So don't shy away from stories about about failures, where you can especially show that it was a powerful growth experience. Or maybe you're trying to tell a story about a success, like a leadership success, but don't shy away from mentioning that you really struggled along the way and that you didn't have everything covered and that you have a lot of room for improvement. And that type of talk, if you balance it, if you do it properly, could be very, very attractive and sticky in the reader's mind. So there, so far, we gave 3 examples about how to stand out. And I hope you are able to convince the admissions officers that you do stand out among the applicant pool. However, once you do that, once you achieve that goal and convincing the admissions team you stand out, you're not done yet. You haven't been admitted, because the admissions team is now looking at another category of questions when trying to decide who they're going to admit to the program. They're asking questions kind of like this. They're thinking, who's really going to like it here? You know, who's really ready to take advantage of all the resources we offer? Who understands our culture and our learning style? You know, who's really done their research? Who really wants to live in this town and be part of this community? So that's what they're thinking of next. Now, I would say that's called who fits in. Okay, so that's why I said this presentation is about standing out and fitting in. So now they want to see who fits in. And I want to give you some advice about the way to show you fit in is through your potential involvement during the MBA program. And there could be many types of involvement. You could be in a student club. You could be in a competition, a case competition, an entrepreneurship competition. You could be in student government. You could do research. There's a lot of ways to get involved in the community. And what you really want to do through your story, whether it's through an essay or an interview answer, is to get the admissions officers to visualize you as part of their community. They can actually imagine you there with their students, and you know, you really want the admissions officer to think, hey, that guy John seems like someone I want to have lunch with or have coffee with after class, or that I'd love bumping into in the hall. So do your research, figure out what this community, what is offered at this community. What are the clubs available? What are the sports? What are the things you could get involved in? And also look carefully at those mission statements for the schools. That tells you a lot about what they care about. For example, look at an MBA program like INSEAD. You know, and their mission statement, they have a strong international, you know, multicultural aspect and mission. So you might want to think about that when you're telling stories, if you're applying to that school, or maybe you're applying to Kellogg, Northwestern University, Kellogg MBA. They have this buzzword of thinking bravely. You might really think carefully about what that means and try to align yourself with that. Or how about Berkeley Hats? You know, they have their 5 pillars, but I think one that they really, really like is confidence without attitude, or confidence with humility. There's that word again, humility. So try to think about your potential involvement, their culture, their activities. Try to convince them that you're going to be really active there and that you're really fitting into that culture. If you can do that, the admissions committee is going to say, when they ask that question, hey, does he really seem like he's done his research? Does he really seem like he fits in here? It's probably going to be a yes. And now I'm going to hand it back to John to give you more insights on this point.
Thank you, David. I'm going to share another example from our clients again. So this is a recent client who's had, again, a pretty non-traditional career path. And he is passionately involved in volunteering, in philanthropy, and he also got interested in his personal investing. He got so interested in his investing that he went so far as to start accumulating professional certificates that say an accountant or a financial analyst might get. So he's very, very deeply involved in this, what was a hobby, but now it happens to have turned into his day job, his most recent day job. That being said, having shared this passion with people and gained a reputation within his network for being someone who gives back, he was invited to give some financial responsibility type workshops within the community that he lives in here in Taiwan. So he gave some workshops about avoiding fraud scams. So there's a lot of email and telephone scams that still unfortunately happen here, and a lot of people fall for it. The person on the other end of the phone might have a lot of personal information. It sounds very legitimate. And, you know, people unwittingly turn over some crucial personal information that can cost, cost them a lot of money. So this client went out into the community and gave several of these workshops. He went on to also share with his colleagues, effectively creating small classes to help them with their own personal investments. And he even shared a funny anecdote with me about teaching his mother about getting into investing, which he found to be, of course, very challenging to invite her into this new space and do something that felt risky with money on the line and that kind of thing. But all of these things together lend themselves to this, to showing that this person has a deep commitment to this this topic of investing, but also takes that from a personal hobby, but goes out and shares that knowledge with other people to help them achieve what they want to achieve, or to protect them from risks that might be out there. So when it came time to identify ways to highlight this in his application, most universities, most MBA programs will have common clubs such as the entrepreneurship club, community service, et cetera. And most of them do have these clubs for investing. And so we targeted a lot of investment clubs, and some of the MBA programs even have seminars and events every year specifically about personal investing. So we identified these opportunities for him to create a very specific alignment with his passion and his achievements in community education for personal finances and investing. And that's what we wrote some of his essays toward, saying that on campus, I would like to continue giving back to the community by being an active member of holding weekly info sessions with the MBA Investment Club, by contributing to the annual finance summit, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. So this client was applying to universities both in the US and the UK. He was able to find alignment at all of the programs that we identified. So in doing so, to just kind of recap this, his proven track record of giving back shows that he has this vision for the greater good. He's a person who goes out and gets involved in the community. He offers his skills and knowledge to help other people, right? It's a hobby that turned into a very serious undertaking. And so it shows that he's proactive, he's self-motivated, and he's legitimately passionate about this topic. And then, as I said, when it came time to write about those things, we looked at each specific program. What were the names of the clubs? Possibly elective courses that he would want to take, but also specifically for in terms of involvement and giving back, looking at clubs, looking at events, looking at community outreach, where that client could show that he would be passionate about contributing. Thank you, David.
So being very specific about potential involvement will require a lot of research, but it will really be worthwhile and will make a big difference in the application, because it's obvious who has done their research and who hasn't. Now, the fifth point I would like to make about how to fit in, again, is through your career goals. Now, every MBA program is going to ask you what your career plan is after you graduate. You're going to have to write about that in a lot of essays. You're going to have to talk about it every time you have an interview. So first of all, of course, you just need to establish what the goal is. It needs to make sense. It needs to seem achievable. But after you do that, now it's about fitting in. And what I mean by that is you want to align the goal with the program. You want to convince the school that what they offer, their courses, their resources, their clubs, give you the knowledge, the resources, the connections that you need to take that next step in your career, to get that job, and when you get that job, to succeed. So you want to show a very close fit between the program and your goal, what you're going to learn, how you're going to prepare for the job search. Because it's kind of hard to, explain, like, I have a goal to enter the healthcare industry. And then if that MBA program you're applying for has zero healthcare related courses, nobody in the class the previous 5 years got into the healthcare industry, there's no healthcare recruiters and there's no healthcare clubs, it's kind of hard to explain that. So you want to really think how that program matches and facilitates your goal. And if you can do that, then again, they're going to, when they ask themselves the question, does this person really know why he or she needs an MBA and how it's going to help them reach their goal? They're going to say, yep, I think he knows or she knows. And as you can guess, John, again, has a has a great example to illustrate this.
Indeed, I do. Thanks, David. Yeah, and to David's point, think carefully about your industry, and also to my prior point about the two examples I've given in this one. I realize that I'm noting that these are unique or interesting career path type situations for many of these clients. However, that happens to be the case for most of our clients, and you'll find that yourself. Your career path is not exactly like anyone else's career path. The successes and failures, the stories that you can tell are uniquely your own. And so you want to dig in and find those things. And so for the client example I'd like to give here, it's a specific transition of someone who started their career in traditional finance, working in a large bank. And then she was able to move to work with TEDx, or TED, as you all know, the public speaking organization that shares all kinds of education and community resources. And this was a really inspiring move for her. She found that she was into a lot more social programs, giving back to people. And she eventually decided that she wanted to focus on social entrepreneurship. So when she came to us, and she was actually struggling with how to align her goal with actual programs that could serve this. So as David said, someone who wants to work in the hospitality or healthcare industry, but goes to a program that doesn't have connections to those industries, isn't going to offer the most to you as a student. So for this client, we worked together to do research. We identified several programs. You can see on the slide here, the Duke CASE, the Center for Advancement of Social Entrepreneurship. So eventually this client was able to kind of dig out this personal story of wanting to eventually get into impact investing, or sustainable impact investing, which involves investing in smaller projects or in countries of need, places where bigger VCs might not be making their largest and safest investments, let's say. So this program at Duke specifically was one that we really targeted. The MBA actually has a social entrepreneurship concentration, which was a great, again, direct alignment for her career goals. Duke had recently launched its own sustainable impact investment fund. So this gives those students the actual opportunity to practice this kind of investing that she wants to do. So it sounds like a very niche thing, but if you look hard at several programs, you'll find that there are programs out there that offer very specific opportunities to put yourself on a path to reach the career you want to reach. So in the end, she did get accepted to Duke. She focused on social entrepreneurship, and she was leveraging her financial background to work hard on maintaining a career in social investing. So with such a, maybe not niche, but very focused goal of social entrepreneurship, we were able to help that client identify very specific programs that were a great fit for her very specifically, instead of just trying to help her get into the 5 best programs that she could get into. And the result of that for our clients has been a lot more career fulfillment, a lot more ease in the job search, as David alluded to. And, sometimes it can also offer some sense of relief, rather than simply thinking you need to go to schools X, Y, and Z, and you realize that other programs are a better fit. There can be, that alignment can help you feel a bit more comfortable through the application process. That's all for this example. Thank you, David.
Thanks, John. So stand out by being an excellent storyteller. Stand out by demonstrating leadership. Stand out by showing humility. Show that you fit in through really strong involvement and a close fit with the culture of the school. Show that you fit in, so that your career goals are really closely aligned with the program. If you can do all 5 of those things, you're going to have a much better chance of being admitted. And I hope this gave you some really good food for thought as you approach your MBA applications. And I hope you guys can bring some of these concepts into the application. And I believe if you do, you will succeed. Now, I believe a few of you submitted questions, and I'm happy to answer a few of them before we have to go here.
Thank you very much, David and John, for this wonderful presentation and sharing your knowledge with us. Indeed, we have a few questions, so I'm going to start right on with the first question. Okay, this is an interesting case here. I want to change my field of work from IT to business. Can you give advice how to present my story when nothing I have done in my past relates to my chosen MBA program?
Okay, I'll answer that. Well, the good news is you're not alone. You know, a lot of people who are applying to MBA programs are trying to make a career change. I'd say 3/4 of them. So that's the first thing to understand. You're not different. You know, a lot of people are trying to make transitions from one industry to the next. So here's some things to think about. First of all, what transferable skills do you have? Yes, you might not have had a job in a business function, but you may have learned certain skills that can be applied from your current job and again reapplied in the future. So think about that. Do you have certain transferable skills that you may be able to use again in business? Also, just try to show passion for that goal and try to show a strong logic for it. How did you realize that you wanted to make this change? Was it through a project you were part of? Was it through a mentor? Was it through a professor you met? Show that inspiration. Maybe, yes, you've never actually done the job before, so you can't say, look, I've done this job, so I know I'm capable, I've got the qualifications. But show your inspiration. That's the first step. Convince me that you're really passionate about it, that you can't wait to get started, and that you've got some of the transferable skills. You're already going to take a big step towards this. Now, how are you going to actually tell the story? I mean, everyone's story is different, so I can't really say how you're going to tell your story. But believe me, there's so many people in the same situation, so don't worry so much. You know, MBA is open to people like you.
Thank you very much, David, for this positive, encouraging answer. Okay, we have another interesting question. Can you talk a little bit more about 2 years versus 1 year MBA? What is better?
John, do you want to handle this one?
Sure, I can jump in. So, of course, the idea of better is subjective, right? So better for you. Every applicant, again, as we talked about today, is in a different situation. 2 years versus 1 year. Obviously, as a baseline, the time consideration for some people is important. A lot of people who do a 1 year MBA possibly are looking to add that to their resume so that they can get a promotion within their current company. So they don't want to take too much time off work. Maybe they want to do a few week breaks during the year to go to that campus and do their studies. And so the 1 year is more convenient for them because their goal is not really to make, let's say, a triple jump from a different job title to a different industry to a different country, but their goal is maybe to stay closer to home and add something to their resume that helps them get a promotion, right? So that's quite a common theme. A lot of 1 year MBAs are also specialized programs. So in the same way that some Master of Management programs are specialized 1 year programs, universities like, let's say, Cornell, they have specialized programs in industries like hospitality that are 1 year or 15 or 18 months, so not quite 2 years. So there are specializations that may appeal to some people in a program that's 1 year or 1.5 years. Of course, the 2 year option, simply looking at the fact that there's more time means there's more time to take internships, there's more time to develop case studies, there's more time to do your own kinds of reporting or whatever your goals are to develop a body of work from your MBA. There's also more time to do networking. So some people will use a 1 year MBA simply to get moved into a new market where they want to be, and they hope to use that as a springboard to network into that market. Whereas a 2 year MBA, you dug in a little bit longer, the university resources are available to you and the network is available to you for longer. So the 2 year program offers the opportunity for deeper study, deeper network building, and a bit more time to build your body of work while you're at the program.
I'll add something to that. I think a 1 year MBA is probably better if you've studied business before. You're not starting from zero, so you don't have as much to learn. You're not making as big of a career transition. Whereas a 2-year MBA, if you're making a really big career transition, especially to industries where an internship is important, like consulting, it's going to give you a much better chance because you need more time to do job searching and networking. So I think there is quite a big difference there.
Thank you both. Let's go to the next question.
Sure.
Can you give tips about standing out during the interview? This is a common question we get. Maybe you can help us here.
Yes, I mean, this is really the most difficult part of the application. On one hand, it's great news when you get that interview invite because they're telling you you're really qualified. They've reviewed your application. They're telling you that your GMAT score is competitive, that your background's competitive, meaning your professional experience must look pretty good on paper. You probably work at a large company, you've been promoted a couple times, you've shown professional success. So now the interview, you need to close the deal, have a nice conversation with this person. They're just trying to get to know you. So I think the first thing is just, think of it as a conversation rather than an interview. And if you think of it, if you frame it like that, you might not be as nervous. I think a lot of people fail just simply because they're too nervous. It's a really important thing in your life. And in any important event, you should be a little bit nervous. But if you're overcome by nervousness, it's hard to imagine you as the future CEO, as the future consultant, if you can't even sit through this interview without shaking and cracking up. So first of all, try to think of it more as like a friendly conversation. The alumni that do the interviewing tend to be very, very friendly and just want to get to know you. And the admissions officers themselves, the reason they do this job is because they're people. They love to meet people and they're friendly. And so don't think that you need to be afraid of them. Think, I'm going to have a nice conversation with this person. Another way is just, there's a lot of ways to find common MBA interview questions. You probably can't cover all of them, but you can see what the most common questions are and really think deeply about your answers and try to think, how can I deliver a really good answer in 2 minutes? In 2 minutes. If I'm talking for more than 2 minutes, it's really hard to pay attention to somebody who's going and talking for 3 or 4 minutes uninterrupted. There's too much information coming at me. I can't remember it. So, and maybe 1 minute's not quite enough. So think about, how do I structure the story in an interesting way in 2 minutes? And then from there, just get into the specific questions one by one. What are my best stories, how to deliver them? I mean, we have lots more interviewing tips, and I hope to help some of you with interviewing next year.
I'd like to just add to that too. One question we get from lots of, well, not a question, but one thing we see from lots of clients preparing for an interview is effectively they've written a script and they're trying to memorize it for specific questions. 99.9% people in the world are bad actors. So reciting a script makes us sound like a robot. And it also makes us be at risk of forgetting the next line or being stumped if we get interrupted and not being able to find our train of thought again. So part of being yourself in the interview is, as David said, be prepared to have a conversation. Maybe think of a few bullet points for each major topic that you want to talk about so that you can find those things and reference them in a more natural way without kind of sounding like you're going through a list of things that you've prepared for in advance, because the interview is about getting to know you as a person, seeing you, understanding your conversation abilities, etc.
Thank you very much, both. Actually, more questions are coming in the Q&A and chat box, but we only have 5 minutes. So I'm taking one last question, and for everyone who still have questions, you can contact us later via email. Okay, we have a very interesting case here of someone saying, could you please give some advice to those applicants who are in their 30s but without people management? Do you think it's a good strategy or alternative to show leadership by telling stories about expat working experience, such as collaborating with multicultural teams to lead the change? Okay, so basically,
Yeah.
I think the question is related to how important is the people management experience in an MBA?
Well, if you have it, it's important, but if you don't have it, it's not fatal, because plenty of people who apply to MBA don't have it. Okay, so your suggestion of like leading change is a great suggestion. Yes, I think in the example John gave earlier of one of our clients who was trying to show leading by example, that's exactly what he did. He showed he was able to lead change within the organization organically through his actions. So yes, I think what you're suggesting has potential, and I would have to get to know you more to know for sure, but you seem to be thinking on the right track.
Thank you, David. Okay, we still have time, maybe one more question, if you're okay.
Let's try to squeeze it in, let's hurry.
Okay, we have a question from, I think, someone who is making their first steps in, even thinking doing an MBA. And they're asking, what should they do to select the programs that they fit best for them? How to access MBA programs to select the one that fits the best? So maybe any tips related to first steps in researching MBA programs?
The only way to learn about a program is to talk to people, talk to alumni, talk to current students, talk to the admissions officers, talk to the student ambassadors. That's how you'll know. Through their stories, you'll know whether it might fit you as well and whether they offer the things you're looking for. Do your research, talk to people.
Thank you guys very much for sharing all these useful tips and words of wisdom. Thank you everyone for joining us. Any final words before closing the webinar?
Good luck, everyone. Thanks for being here, wherever you are in the world.